Have you ever wondered why some people seem to get ahead financially even though they don't earn extraordinary salaries? Why does it feel like no matter how hard you work, money somehow disappears before the month even ends? And here's an uncomfortable question. If someone asked you where most of your money went over the last 3 years, could you actually answer them? Because for millions of people, the scariest part isn't being broke today. It's realizing they're slowly becoming broke in the future without even noticing it. A few dinners here, a couple of online purchases there, an upgraded phone, a subscription you forgot to cancel. None of it feels expensive in the moment, yet somehow years pass and your bank account still feels stuck in the same place. But what if I told you that one of the biggest financial mistakes people make isn't overspending? It's underestimating how powerful a small amount of money can become over time. Most people look at $100 and immediately dismiss it. They think that's not enough to change my life. And that's exactly why so many people stay trapped in the cycle of working harder without ever building real wealth. Because the people who eventually become financially secure didn't wait until they had thousands of dollars to invest. They started with an amount that almost felt insignificant. Here's the scary part. Every year you delay starting, you're not just losing money, you're losing time. And time is the one asset that even millionaires can't buy back. Now, here's where people get distracted. They believe building wealth is about finding a secret investment, a hot stock, or some hidden opportunity that everyone else missed. So they spend months researching, watching videos, and waiting for the perfect moment. But the perfect moment never comes. Before they know it, another year has passed, and they're still standing exactly where they started. Meanwhile, someone else quietly invested a small amount every single month and moved closer to financial freedom without making any dramatic moves at all. And here's something that might surprise you. Building wealth is actually supposed to feel boring. In fact, if it feels exciting all the time, you're probably doing it wrong. Because wealth isn't built through excitement. It's built through repetition. It's built through showing up month after month, even when it doesn't feel life-changing. But that's also why so many people quit. They expect immediate results. They expect to see thousands of dollars appear overnight. And when they don't, they stop before the real magic begins. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. There comes a point when everything starts accelerating. A point where your money slowly stops depending entirely on you and begins working alongside you. And what happens around year 5 completely changes the game. But almost nobody stays long enough to witness it. So what exactly happens around year 5 that makes people wish they had started sooner? The answer is something invisible. In fact, it's happening long before you can even notice it. Imagine pushing a giant boulder up a hill. In the beginning, every push feels exhausting. You sweat, you struggle, and yet it barely moves. That's exactly how investing feels during the first few years. You keep putting in money month after month, and the progress feels almost disappointing. This is the stage where most people give up. Not because investing doesn't work, but because they expected immediate rewards from a process designed to reward patience. Now imagine that same boulder finally reaching the top of the hill. Suddenly, gravity starts helping you instead of fighting you. That's exactly what compounding does. Your money begins creating its own momentum. At first, you're doing all the work, but eventually your money starts working alongside you. And once that shift happens, the game changes completely. Let's make this real. If you invested just $100 every month and earned an average annual return of 8%, after 10 years, you'd have roughly $18,000. But here's the part people overlook. You only contributed $12,000 yourself. The remaining thousands came from your money producing more money. Now stretch that timeline to 20 years, and you're approaching nearly $60,000. Keep going for 30 years, and suddenly you're looking at around $150,000 or even more, depending on market performance. And remember, that's without increasing your contribution. But here's a frightening thought. Every year you postpone starting doesn't simply cost you $1,200. It could cost you tens of thousands in future wealth. Because compounding doesn't reward people who invest the most. It rewards people who start the earliest and stay the longest. And this is where emotions become dangerous. Most beginners become obsessed with checking their accounts every day. They celebrate when numbers are green and panic when they're red. One bad month convinces them they've made a mistake. One scary headline sends them running for the exit. But the investors who ultimately win aren't smarter. They're calmer. In fact, some of the most successful investors in history follow an incredibly boring strategy. They invest the same amount every month regardless of what the market is doing. When prices are high, they buy. When prices are low, they buy. When everyone is excited, they buy. When everyone is terrified, they buy. This simple habit quietly removes emotion from the equation and allows time to do what humans often fail to do: remain consistent. But there's still one major decision left to make, because even if you're committed to investing $100 every month, putting it in the wrong place could dramatically slow down your progress. And the truth is, most beginners make this mistake before they ever give themselves a chance to succeed. Now comes the question that stops almost everyone from getting started. Where should that $100 actually go? Because this is the exact moment where thousands of people become trapped in an endless cycle of overthinking. They spend weeks watching videos, reading opinions, and trying to find the perfect investment. One expert says, buy technology stocks. Another says, buy real estate. Someone else says, wait for a market crash. Suddenly, something that should have taken 10 minutes turns into 10 months of indecision. And during that entire time, the one thing they can never recover is time itself. Here's the truth most successful investors eventually discover. Building wealth isn't about being clever. It's about being simple for an extremely long time. Instead of trying to predict which company will dominate the future, many long-term investors choose something much less exciting, but far more reliable: broad market ETFs. Think of an ETF as a giant basket that contains hundreds of companies all working for you at the same time. Instead of placing all your hopes on a single company succeeding, you're spreading your investment across an entire economy. One of the most popular examples is an S&P 500 ETF, which tracks hundreds of the largest companies in the United States. These are businesses that have survived recessions, inflation, financial crises, and decades of uncertainty. No, they don't make people rich overnight. That's precisely why they work. Because wealth is rarely built through dramatic moments. It's built through ordinary actions repeated over and over again. Now, here's something fascinating. If someone invested just $100 every month into a broad market fund for 30 years, they could potentially build well over $150,000, even though they personally contributed only a fraction of that amount. Think about that for a second. The majority of the growth didn't come from working extra hours. It came from giving time a chance to do its job. But there's another secret that separates people who succeed from people who quit. They automate everything. They don't rely on motivation because motivation disappears. Some days you'll feel excited. Other days life will get expensive, stressful, or unpredictable. If your investing strategy depends on how motivated you feel, eventually you'll stop. But automation removes that decision entirely. The money gets invested whether you're busy, tired, optimistic, or afraid. And that's important because there will eventually come a day when the market falls hard. Your account balance may drop 10%, 20%, maybe even more. Every instinct will tell you to stop. Every headline will tell you to run. And that single decision could determine whether you build wealth or spend years starting over again. Because the biggest threat to your future isn't a market crash. It's what fear might convince you to do during one. Let's fast forward 10 years into the future for a moment. Imagine opening your investment account one ordinary morning. You see a balance that once felt impossible. Maybe it's $18,000. Maybe it's $25,000. Maybe it's even more. But strangely, the number itself won't be the most important thing you notice. What will shock you is how easy it all felt in hindsight. Because the hardest part was never investing the money. The hardest part was simply beginning. Now imagine an alternate version of yourself. The version that kept saying, I'll start next month. The version that waited until they earned more money. Waited for the economy to improve. Waited until life became less stressful. 10 years later, that person is still waiting. And that's the silent danger most people never talk about. Financial struggles rarely happen because people make one huge mistake. They happen because of thousands of tiny delays repeated over years. Here's another truth that might surprise you. At some point during your journey, the market will fall. It always does. There will be scary headlines everywhere. People will panic. Experts will make bold predictions. Your account balance may suddenly drop 20%, maybe even 30%. And in that moment, your brain will start whispering dangerous thoughts. Maybe I should stop. Maybe investing doesn't work anymore. Maybe I should wait until things feel safer. But that's exactly where fortunes are quietly built. Because while everyone else is running away, disciplined investors are doing something incredibly boring. They're continuing to invest. They're buying when prices are lower. They're trusting a process that has rewarded patience for generations. Remember this, fear is temporary, but the cost of acting on fear can follow you for decades. And here's something even more powerful. After 10 years, you won't just have a larger account balance. You'll have a completely different identity. You'll become someone who automatically invests, someone who thinks long-term, someone who no longer panics every time the economy changes. And that shift is worth more than any number in your portfolio because once you build that identity, scaling becomes easy. The same person who once thought $100 was impossible may eventually invest $300, $500, or even $1,000 a month without feeling overwhelmed. This is how ordinary people quietly become financially independent, not through lottery ticket investments, not through perfect timing, not through working themselves into exhaustion, but through one small decision repeated over and over again while everyone else is still searching for shortcuts. So if you're sitting there thinking, it's only $100, how much difference could it really make? Understand this. This was never about $100. It was about direction. Every month you delay, time moves forward without you. But every month you invest, time starts working for you instead of against you. Because a decade from now, you'll only have one of two stories to tell. Either you'll say, I'm glad I started when I did, or you'll quietly wonder why you waited so long when the answer was sitting in front of you the entire time. And if today's video changed the way you think about money, don't stop here. Because investing $100 is only the beginning. The next question is far more important. Where exactly should you put that money to maximize growth while keeping risk under control? That's where the real transformation begins, and that's exactly what we'll cover in the next video.